Hi everyone, welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty, today we're going to Canada, but we're going to go actually to England. We're not really going to do that. We're
Well,
going to
you
be
do
in
that all the
places
time.
like England.
I know,
okay?
I know, I
Well, we're
know.
going to learn about some English phrases, so let's learn about it now.
Cottage, the cold would come up through that in the wintertime and make this floor unbearable to stand on. Now, so we changed it to cement, but believe you me, after a 9-hour day, it's just as hard on the legs. Okay? Now, one thing that we'll talk about upstairs a little bit later, but the one most fascinating thing about this period of time were the words that they used. Now, that doesn't sound very exciting, but it really was. Words that they used to describe innocent, ordinary, everyday things, which over the years, for some peculiar reason, have become our sayings. And I'm going to give you quite a few of them today. To start with, the stone floor was very cold. That's where stone cold originated from. If you're wealthy, you can afford this floor. If you're poor, forget it. It took a lot of money and a lot of muscles to put it in. So if you're poor, all you had on your kitchen floor would be dirt if you were poor. That would make you dirt poor. And that's where that one came from. Now, a little bit about the house here. In the wintertime, you only have 29 people to feed and house. And in the summertime, you would have 62. Now that sounds like quite the mittful, and boy, was it ever. The original Hathaway farm came with 90 acres worth of prime farmland. Okay, and that 90 acres has no machinery on it to do the farming, so you're going to end up having to actually get people to help you out, and you're going to need a lot of them, 40 of them, to help you out in the summertime, in the latter half of the spring, and the early part of the fall. 40 farm hands, and they can't work a 16-hour shift for you, walk all the way home and all the way back, only to be back to work for another 16-hour shift, okay? What you're going to end up having to do is house them here. So when we go upstairs, I'll show you the brothers' room where 43 people would sleep on the floor. And it's the same size as this room right here, okay? You also have to feed them. And if you think 40 people is enough to feed, try 15 extra, because you've got 10 to 15 kids on average. 7 children was a small family, 20 children was considered reasonably large, okay? 40 farm hands, 15 children, 5 serving girls to help out the mother, and the mother and the father. So there's 62 people, and they eat at that table. Isn't that going to be fun work? Okay, so you have to work shift work just like we would today when a family reunion comes over. Slap, 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 slap. Hurry up, eat, shoot, out you go, and the next shift comes in. By the time you finish breakfast, it's lunchtime. By the time you finish lunch, it's dinner. By the time you finish dinner, it's bedtime. And what you're going to make is you're going to make stew. And you're going to eat that every meal of the day, every day of the year. Okay? You had a devil's claw and a big pot that would hold your stew. Your turnips, your parsnips, your carrots, root vegetables, very common, meat, garlic, onions. You're going to make your stew out of that. No tomatoes, because tomatoes they considered poisonous, and they were the act of the devil, so they never ate them. Potatoes weren't even around at that particular period of time, so there were no potatoes in their food, okay? And the problem was the rich people ate the wrong food, the poor people didn't get enough, and both of them unfortunately overcooked their food. Perfect example of that, keep on adding to the pot. When you go to retire for the evening, put the lid on it. The next morning, get up, add more broth, more meat, more vegetables, and just keep right on ladling it out. So once every 9 months, you stop the pot, clean it out, and start a fresh batch. What's that stew going to be like down the bottom of the pot, guys? Isn't that going to be nummy? No minerals, no vitamins, no proteins, no nutrients of any kind. If you don't have any nutrients, you don't grow. That's why the women were 4'7", 90 pounds, and men were 5'2", 110. Full grown. That was all of Europe except for Germany, where they were smaller. Okay? Gives you a bit of an idea that every generation that's gone by, we've grown a little bit bigger because of the fact that we get more nutrients in our diet. Okay? Now, a little bit about what happens in the wintertime. Not very nice in these homes in the wintertime. Cold from the floor, cold from the thatch roof, and cold coming through the straw walls that are just covered up with a little clay, and that was wattle and daub, and that was called. Kept the wind out, didn't keep the cold out. In the wintertime, you freeze your knickers off in here in the wintertime. Let me tell you, you do. So you're going to know that the cold is coming in, so the heat is going out. So concentrate on really blast furnacing one room. This was it. The rest of the house remained bitterly cold. Okay, that's fine. Now you have to bring your kids in here. 15 kids, 2 serving girls, and a mom in this one room all winter long. Ladies, what do you think? Is that fun? Oh boy, okay? And then anyone with bare feet would stick to the floor like your tongue does to a popsicle. If you take your foot away quick, you rip the skin off the bottom of your foot. So us mums are going to go out, collect 200-300 bulrushes, peel the leaves off of them, sprinkle them on the floor 4 inches thick. And there you have it. Wall-to-wall carpeting, 1500 style. They called it thresh, and they did not want the children tracking the thresh outside, so they put a board up against the door frame to hold in the thresh. The board was called a threshold, because it would hold in the thresh. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay? Now, if you think 15 kids, 2 serving girls is bad enough, listen to this. Rats and mice around the fireplace. Rich, poor, middle class, frankly, the rats didn't care. They just want food. You got 2 choices. Kick them out of the way and continue on cooking like most of them had to, or if they get that bad, fine, bring in the dogs and cats to take care of them. Now you've got dogs, cats, rats, mice, 10 to 15 kids, 2 serving girls and a mum in this one room all winter long. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm cracking open the extra strength Tylenol. That's enough for me. Okay? You're sitting around your kitchen table, bones and scraps left over on your plate, right over your shoulder and onto the floor. They were under the impression they were feeding their dogs and cats, and then they wondered why they had rats and mice. There's a good reason for it. And then this piece is hilarious. I love this piece. This piece here was called a child's drainage chair. There are no such thing as diapers. This is where the baby is going to sit for half to 3/4 of the day, just in case, because you never know when, right? Now, take a look at those holes. No offense, gentlemen, but it must have been a man who invented this chair, because back in 1500, a man would never have seen the backside of a child, and he wouldn't have known what it was looked like in order to make the holes. Okay, so that's that. And there's no pot underneath it that goes right onto the thresh floor. Okay, drizzles onto the floor, and your children were walking in that in their bare feet, and they couldn't understand why their children were ill all the time. That was the reason for it. Okay. So you get a really good idea why they didn't live very long and why they were continually ill. Because they're going to gather all this stuff up and clean it out of the house once a year. They did it in May and they called it spring cleaning. That's where spring cleaning comes from. They're also going to burn it, and they named the fire from all the bones from the kitchen table. They called it a bone fire. Over the years we've dropped the E, and that's where our bonfire comes from. Okay? And also, once a year, they are going to have their yearly bath in May as well. That's why all weddings were in June. That's where the June wedding comes from. Okay? They figured they were squeaky clean after having a bath a month before. That was a good time to get married. Why are they going to have a bath once a year? Very simple. There are devil spirits in the water, don't you know? They're highly uneducated. They take on superstition and wives' tales. They think that if they die from drinking a glass of water, it's possessed with devil spirits, not actual cholera or typhoid like it would be. So if I bathe, okay? If I bathe, then what's going to happen to me? I'm really going to be possessed with evil spirits then, aren't I? Yeah. Okay? And so you're going to fill a bathtub here, and you're going to have your yearly bath. And they couldn't understand why they were ill all the time? There's another good reason for it, okay? So what I'm going to get till I tell you about this, just this, and then I'm done, okay? Now this here is called a trench board. It's a piece of board with a trench carved in the middle of it to hold your stew. Okay, you're going to eat the stew, sop it up with a piece of bread, flip it over, and have dessert on the other side of it. So you know what you're going to tell your children? You can't have any dessert until you clear your plate. Last 10 to 15 years until it cracks and breaks, and I have to carve myself another one. In that period of time, it's my plate. I'm the only one that eats off of it, and it's just stew, so what's the point in cleaning it? You're just going to take the flavor out of my plate. So they never did. Not in 15 years did they ever wash their plates. Okay, what disease are you going to get from your trench board? Trench mouth. Your gums turn black, your teeth fall out, rather unpleasant. Not near as bad as dying from salmonella or botulism poisonings, which you've had on occasion from this plate. And not only that, of course, the tiny little holes all the way through the plates. That's not fork marks, that's where the worms lived. Now that I've totally disgusted everybody before lunch, I hope you all get 3 square meals today. I'm so mean. That's my favorite part, though. Now, of course, don't forget to take it with you when you go traveling, because this is all you have. There's not another one at the other side waiting for you. So you'd ask an innkeeper, could I please have a room, sir, and food for my board? It later got shortened to room and board. That's the board in room and board. Okay? And there we have it. Okay? Hands that would be helping out, doing odd jobs, fixing the barn, fixing fences, that type of thing. So you'd have 10 men sleeping up here with the 3 boys. That's why there are no beds, because there are so many people sleeping in this room. But in the summertime, you have 40 farmhands. They have to sleep someplace, so there'd be 43 people sleeping on the floor in this one room. Okay? Now, every room, like I said, that has 4 corners and a door in your house is going to be taxed. Where are their closets, guys?
Oh, you mean they got clean clothes?
They got, actually what ended up happening is their closets, one closet would be considered a 4 corners and a door, right? And it's made of wood. There's a double whammy in the tax department, so they and put all their stuff into trunks. And it's a good thing they did, because if they didn't, the rats and mice would have had a heyday in it anyway, and the moths and all of the other stuff. But get this, you would open up one of those things nowadays, and you'd go to get their clothes out, and they would be crawling. Okay, I'm talking fleas, and I'm talking lice. That's why the women back then and the men had tight collars against their necks, and the women had their beautiful collars for their dresses tight against the neck. That's to keep the body lice from crawling onto the face, didn't you know? Crawling up onto the face. They bathe once a year. You don't think they're going to get lice bathing once a year? Definitely. How often do they clean their clothes? Water's possessed with evil spirits, right? Twice a year they clean their clothes. And they never wash their dishes, like I told you in the parlor. Okay? Gives you an idea. Now, you decide to go on a trip. Well, don't think you're going to get out the Samsonite luggage and you're going to be on your way, because that's not going to happen. There's your suitcase. What's the difference between a trunk and a suitcase? That one's got handles. And that's the difference. Can you imagine Queen Elizabeth I and her entourage, when they went anywhere? 150 trunks, wherever she went. Those things only held 2 of her dresses. I mean, when you think about the fact that they go down, she has a 12-foot train and they're velvet, and they've got petticoats and petticoats and petticoats, and the big rings around them too. You try to squash that up into a little piece, you're still only going to get 2 into the trunk. Okay, so every time she went anywhere on holiday, she had 150 trunks, and they would be following behind her wherever she went. Unreal, eh? Different type of lifetime completely than what we can possibly imagine, okay? So gentlemen, just before we leave, you are in an 85% tax bracket. Now I cannot make that plain enough for everyone, okay? You take that dollar, take 85 cents of it away, you live on that 15 cents and you raise those 15 kids with it. Good luck. You're going to need it, okay? So are you going to work a normal 8-hour a day, 5 days a week like we do today? Not on your life. 7 days a week, 16-hour shifts every day. Got 3 hours off for church on Sunday morning, which you attended, or you went to jail or paid an actual day's fine, a day's work in fines. That was law back then. The occasional holy holiday off, few and far between. So a man that would be bent over, walking with a cane, very frail, unable to work any longer at all, would be 37 years old. 17 was middle age. Just in case anybody wants to go back to the good old days, I rest my case. So does anybody have any questions about the 1500s? Pretty wild times, eh?
Do you know, or do you have any research on what the emotional attitude one toward the other was?
As far as the men and women were concerned, or?
You know, well, you have like household problems now, kids bickering and one thing and another. You have that many people, or you have guests in, and we consider nowadays that we have a tremendous amount of prejudice for one reason or another, that was a non-existent situation then, or no?
Oh, definitely. But it wasn't the way it is today. They didn't have any real prejudices as far as blacks are concerned, or Hispanic or anything like that. That wasn't the prejudice. The prejudice that they had back in those days was somebody that was mentally or physically challenged. Because as far as they were concerned, those people should not have lived. They are a spawn of the devil. So if you've got polio and you're walking through town and you're a young person and you're crippled up, there's a spawn of the devil. And they picking up the rocks. Whoo, whoo, and they huck them at you. Okay, if you're blind, if you're mute, if you're deaf, You had to go into town and you had to have somebody lead you wherever you went and had to protect you. Because a lot of people would say, oh, get him away from my place. I'm not having anybody coming into my place that's possessed with the devil. You see, anything these people couldn't understand, caused them harm, caused them grief, or caused them death, was possessed by the devil. You have to understand how uneducated these people were compared to our standards. There was one school for every 23,000 students in 1500. Guess who's going to get the education? You got that. And then only the boys, because girls were not deserving of an education. Okay, so as far as the prejudice were concerned, men and women were here, men were here, and neither the two should meet. Okay, and the women had to have their place in society. Okay, you know, that was very much so. And women couldn't work, women couldn't own land, women couldn't own property. Only if they got married that it was passed into the husband's name, and they still weren't allowed to touch it. So as far as by our standards are concerned, we've come a long, long way. Okay? Any other questions about 1500? No? I guess we're all done.
Well, you know, Betty, one of the things that she explained also was and I wondered about that too, like canopy, you know, over the bed. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that was because so many of those houses during that time just had thatch roofs. And that's where the mice and all the little varmints lived. And in the middle of the night, you're liable to have, if you didn't have some sort of covering over there, you're liable to have a mouse or a rat or something in bed with you. Yeah. Well, and that's where the canopy came from.
Well, I want to tell you something, Marv. They can be assured that that would never, never happen on our trips. We all stay in the best hotels, and it's nothing like that. But
well, we're not going back to the 15th century
it was
either,
very interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I found
really.
particularly the expressions that were so unique for us today. You know, we just take them for granted, don't we?
Well, it's interesting to see how some of these phrases came into the English language, you know, and she was really a wealth of information. Now, we had been through the real Anne Hathaway's cottage in England. And, of course, this was just a reproduction of it there in Canada. But I think they did a better job of explaining it in Canada than what we saw in England, you know.
But it was easier for you in Canada, too, because of your height. You didn't have to bend over all the time going in the rooms.
Well, they also built that a little bit bigger than the other one, too.
That's what she had told us. They had to.
Speaking of rooms, this was one of the rooms that we had in the beautiful hotel where we stayed in Victoria. In fact, it wasn't a room. It was almost like a suite. There was a bedroom and a kitchen and a living room, and the view from the balconies were really, really quite marvelous, weren't they, Betty?
Yeah, this is pretty dark. Was this kind of in the evening that
I don't know. We kept shooting it all different sort of times whenever we got a chance to.
Yeah, but it was just lovely.
Yeah, because it was
dusk there because you can see the lights on now
Isn't
at
that
the Parliament building.
Right, and then there's the Empress Hotel, of course, right in front of us. Look at those clouds. Yeah. This is what I liked. I mean, the view just changed all the time. Every time you looked, it was just a little bit different. And this is where the pub that I think on one of the other programs you talked about, Betty, where we had dinner one night. Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful.
And it was cute. It was fun, and it was so close to the hotel, walking distance. So there's just a lot of nice things there. I would love to go back.
Yeah, that's what most of the people on the trip said too. They'd like to go back and spend more time there in Victoria because it is really quite beautiful, quite nice. Well, speaking about trips and things, you've got some special announcements on things coming up, right?
Well, that I do. My Fatima trip is sold out, so I can't do that anymore. The Alaska, there were still a couple of accommodations left, a couple of cabins left on that, but it is rather late because that is in June the 8th. Then we have in August, we are going to go to Yellowstone. We're going to go August the 18th. We're going to Mount Rushmore, and we're going to Cheyenne, Wyoming. Oh, we're going to go so many places. Yeah. It's going to be a really good trip. It's from August the 18th to August the 28th. And going by bus is fun.
It is fun.
Oh, here, let's look who do we see up
there?
Our
whole group. Our whole group was there for breakfast in the morning. We ate up on the top side of the hotel there, and their food was absolutely
Judy
delicious.
And Ben travel with me so much of the time. They're just really delightful people to have along. We also had a banquet up here the night before we left.
That's right,
it was just wonderful. And you sat there at your table and looked out over the view. It was inspiring.
The city's really quite something at whether it's morning time or evening time. That's one city that has beautiful views. I've got to say, just beautiful views.
You got views of the backs there.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's the only thing you can do, isn't it?
Unless you
can-
stand on the other side of the
table
window.
or have a swiveling table.
Could do that
now
too.
there is Wally who brought me all the pictures and that I proceeded to send to as many people as I could. We do thank you,
He just
Wally.
made some beautiful, beautiful photographs. And he had this camera. It was an older camera too. And I thought, wonder what kind of pictures he's going to get. Because I had a brand new and all automatic. I looked at my pictures. I looked at his. I'm ready to throw my new automatic camera away.
But of course, he works for a camera shop.
Yeah,
and so
well,
that
he
makes
knows
a
what he's
difference.
doing.
He knows what he's
That's
doing.
for sure. Here's the other side, or the front entrance of the Empress, the old front entrance. Now they've got another entrance on the back side now, which I think is the new entrance to the thing.
Do you know how many rooms they have?
I don't know, but I know I stayed in it several years ago, and it was the rooms were rather old. You know,
Yeah,
they were. It was a thrill, though. I mean, just say that you stayed at the Empress, but the cost and the age of it. Now, who knows? They may have redone the rooms by now. I don't know.
Well,
but
I would hope so.
I think the hotel where we stayed was absolutely beautiful.
It was
just
gorgeous.
beautiful.
Now, at the Empress Hotel, they're very famous for their high tea.
Right. Uh-huh.
That is the thing to do. I don't think any of our people did. We all sort of
We didn't
thought
have
we
any
would,
time.
but it
Yeah.
went too fast.
Not only that, but their high tea is also has a high price tag on it too. So I think paying $20 or $30
for a cup of
to have
tea
a cup of tea and
and a
some little
sandwich.
finger sandwiches,
Uh-huh.
just a little bit much.
Oh,
So
I wonder who that is.
I don't know, Joseph in her many-colored coats,
Yeah.
or Josephina.
Josephina. Josephina.
Well, there we are. Betty and I did go out and take a walk early in the morning so that we could get some nice shots there to show you how the harbor looks. And this is so clean. It is so much walking area here too. I think that's one of the things that's so attractive there. And before, when I've been there, they've had little people, playing instruments and entertaining there at different periods of time.
This is neat. This is where I fell up the stairs, if you can imagine. And I was so embarrassed. First thing I did, I heard it. I mean, it hurt my hands.
Sure it was.
First thing I did was turn around and see who saw me. I can't imagine falling.
I don't think this guy saw you because he was busy doing, look at there, cleaning the water.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Isn't that something? Cleaning the
Yeah,
water.
well, it was very, very beautiful to see. Everything was
Yeah.
pristine.
It's nice to go. Now, Betty, we were talking about other trips here a little while ago. We talked about the bus trip that you have coming up, and then we want to talk about our trip, our 14 days visiting Turkey.
Yeah, but before
Boy.
that, we have the Holy Land in
Oh, that's right.
October. October the 11th, we will be going to the Holy Land. I have to have some feedback on the Holy Land in October because we have so many trips put together at one time that it's, I don't know how manageable it's going to be for me.
So if you are interested in the Holy
Please
Land,
let
then you
me
better
know.
let Betty
That
know
would
about
be
it, right?
October the 11th. And then our trip to Turkey is November the 5th. And then we have a new surprise for you.
Yeah.
Our Bishop Steinbach came over the other day and asked how I would feel about him doing a trip to Mexico to Our Lady of Guadalupe. Well, how do I feel? I was excited. I was thrilled.
Right.
So we are going to plan
A pilgrimage.
a pilgrimage with Bishop Steinbach to Mexico. We will just stay in Mexico City. It will be for 5 days, and it will be a true pilgrimage.
And so that's going to be in December, and that will be a very exciting trip.
We'll
I think,
have
especially for people who have made pilgrimages before and maybe have never made one to the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City.
Well,
which
even
is
if you
very
have,
beautiful.
it's worth going back again.
Yeah.
I've
I
been
haven't
there
s-
several times.
I haven't seen the new basilica there. I've been in the old one several times, but I haven't been in the new one. However, I have to say, while they were building it, I was a guest at the in the home of the architect who designed it.
Oh, la-di-da.
Yeah,
Oh, let
pretty
me
fancy,
touch you.
huh?
Yes.
Anyway, he had a nice home too.
I would imagine.
But I am kind of anxious to see how it would look. Speaking of seeing things, Betty, didn't you go in the museum here?
I did. I told you it was so wonderful. I loved the marine scene. That was my very favorite place. It was so realistic. I wanted to go up and pet something that, you know, there were the walruses. No, I wouldn't really do that, though. I'd be scared to death.
Well, there is an awful lot to see here, and we just are showing you just a bits of it here on the Adventures Travel Club television show. But you know, we might plan on going back again to Victoria, because there's we can spend more time there, I think, don't you, Betty?
Yes, I really enjoyed that. I am going myself to Canada in April, just me. Just me.
Just you?
And I'm going to check it out and see what might be feasible for next year.
Good. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit more about Turkey.
Okay, what do you want to know
where are we going to
about
go?
Turkey?
I don't know anything about
Well,
Turkey, because I haven't. All I've done is take
Well,
an airplane, fly over it. But
Okay, I
I've never
can
been
tell
down
you something, because
into it.
I've been to Istanbul and I have been to Kusadasi, and Istanbul is famous for the Blue Sophia Mosque.
The Blue Mosque.
The
yeah.
Blue Mosque, yes, St. Sophia's, and it is incredible. You take your shoes off when you go out, you know, when you go inside, and the carpets themselves are so beautiful, and the windows. It's
Well, I've seen pictures of it, like the
Yeah.
mosaic work and the
Yeah,
things that are absolutely
They really
breathtaking.
are,
From what again, only from the photographs.
so
that
that's
I've
one
seen.
of the things. And then we do go to the bazaar in Istanbul. It's a big one.
Is it like the one in Cairo where we went to in Egypt?
Yeah, I think even bigger than that. It's on a grander scale than that. Then we go to see all of the treasures, the jewels at the palace, and we're there 2 or 3 days, and wonderful place to bring back souvenirs.
Of the
for
jewels from the
Christmas.
palace?
Well, you can even get reproductions of them, sure.
Okay.
And then, of course, Kusadasi was my very favorite place, and that was where St. Paul did a lot of his preaching. All marble. You just cannot describe it in words. It is so fantastic. So
that
I think
sounds
it's going to be a
wonderful.
great trip. I do already have 20 people that have signed up for it,
Is
and
that
I'm
right?
not
Good.
going to
You're
take
not gonna
more
take
than
very many
30.
more then, huh?
No.
Okay, so
no.
if you are interested in that trip, then we better get
It's-
in touch with Betty
yeah.
then right away.
It's something different. It's something that most people don't do, and Turkey is just now really being discovered as
Yeah.
the place to go.
That's what I understand. And for a lot of the Europeans and some of the people in the Middle East, they're finding that Turkey is
yes.
has a very, very open door policy for a lot of people. They're all set up for tourism in a bigger way than they were before. So
A lot of
it sounds
spas
great.
and a lot of thermal places where you can go and take the nice warm baths. Sounds good to me when it's cold here.
If it doesn't smell like rotten eggs,
No,
that's usually
that
the thing.
sulfur
When it's,
smell,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
some places. Anyway, we're going to get on the ferry here, and we're going to go over to Washington. Now I think we're going to go over to Whidbey Island from here. So that's kind of takes our little trip there to our little tour to Victoria. And this was interesting. You know, it's always interesting to me to see how they put the vehicles on here. And they, golly, these people know exactly what they're doing.
They
I mean, whether
better.
it's a big bus or a small car or whatever. I mean, they just know exactly how they're going to do it. Well, if you're interested in any of the trips that we do have coming up, please give Betty a call. And Betty, your phone number is?
488-7443.
Or if you would like, you can write to Betty, and she'll send you a brochure on the trips that we have coming up. And our address is Adventures Travel Club, and that's 1550 North Fresno Street, Fresno 93703. But as Betty says, some of these trips are filling up right away, so it would behoove you to give her a call and get your name on the list, and also to send your deposit in right away so that we can reserve a place for you. So, Betty, that just about wraps it up for this edition, so we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.